This weekend, 50K Dan Ige taking on Carl Weathers.
Jackson, and action is on the way.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
In a matchup for the ages, Matt, these guys are absolute studs at 145 pounds, and it just so happens that Dan Ige is looking to hold on to the ranking that he has, even though he's on a 3-fight skid, taking on a surging Damon Jackson. And for Jackson, his first time in the UFC was not all that good. There was a loss, a no contest, and a draw. And then he has to kind of pick up the piece. He fights with Legacy, LFA, he fights with the PFL, and he ends up back in the UFC, and he's not favored to beat Mirsad Bektic. But oh my gosh, did he ever have a Hail Mary win in that matchup? And he's parlayed that forward to going 5-1 since he returned to the UFC in 2020. His last time out, Damon Jackson going out there, taking on Pat Sabatini. Sabatini favored to win that fight, marches forward, Jackson lands a short shot that wobbles him, and then he just decides, listen, I'm like Chris Nyland in the 80s against Jay Miller, and I'm going to just start feeding him the uppercuts.
Lit him
Sabatini drops like a sack of potatoes, and Jackson, the best part about that finish, gets the back, locks down the hooks, and then he's landing ground and pound, and Sabatini can't get out. Referee is forced to stop the fight, and it just so happened that Jackson's brother passed away a week before that fight, so really emotional scenes. But Matt, to get back to it, he always used to be the leech, and now all of a sudden he's action.
Way better.
Now he's action, and he's got 2 big black stripes of tattoos on his back. He's a new man.
He really is.
His hair even looks fuller.
I'm going to learn from my own mistakes on the last card that we did in the co-main event. And I think you know where I'm going with this. I picked Julian Erosa to beat Alex Caceres for these reasons. Erosa was a guy who had some shortcomings, but was on a really good run of his career. And the thing about Alex Caceres is, you kind of know what you know about him, right? He's fought everybody in the division. So, but the
Pick
thing
underdogs, though. Go ahead.
For Alex Caceres, he was able to really use all of the knowledge that he had, all the experience that he had, and put on a great performance. I look at this fight to be very similar as that other co-main event. Now, Caceres throws a much more varied attack than a guy like Dan Ige, but Dan Ige, I would say, has a specialization that Alex Caceres doesn't necessarily have. Dan Ige is a very good boxer and a very heavy-handed boxer, and he's able to land his own counter shots. So there's a very large part of me that goes, hey, could Damon Jackson kind of become that fighter that he's starting to morph into, the action Jackson, to where he can hurt you on the feet, submit you on the mat, take a beating, and just keep on ticking? I just don't know if that's going to work against a guy like Dan Ige, though, because I was a big Pat Sabatini guy. I thought he was going to have a very promising future.
He still could.
And he still could, don't get me wrong, but we have seen him get hurt on the feet in a few of his fights, and that was always an area that he has some question marks about. Dan Ige's been hurt before. He's been in tough fights before. I've seen this guy get hit by fight-ending shots in every single one of his fights. He takes like one step backwards and seems to be all right after. Like, if you get into a firefight type fight with a guy like Dan Ige, that's when you are really going to struggle. Now, the Movsar Evloev fight was the first performance where that wasn't really how he had lost. He went out there, got out grappled, got out jabbed on the feet too, and that was something that was definitely not something I thought we were going to see in that fight. But again, with Dan Ige, I think you do have to consider just the strength of schedule that he has had. You can't look at his record and go, wow, he's 15-6, how good could the guy be? Because he has only fought some of the best fighters in the UFC ever since he made his debut.
And that's the weird thing. We threw it out there to you in the YouTube community poll. 38% voted that this is their fight of the night between Ige and Jackson. But the weird part about this is for Dan Ige, and you set it up really well, like, he went on that crazy win streak after he dropped his debut to Julio Arce. He beat Mike Santiago, Jordan Griffin, Danny Henry, Kevin Aguilar, Mirsad Bektic, and Edson Barboza. And Barboza was a fight that most people thought that Edson won that fight. So Ige gets a main event against Calvin Kattar and got beat pretty well pillar to post.
He did, and the volume was a really big problem for him in that fight.
Now, like Kattar did after he got beat pillar to post by Holloway, Kattar comes back and fights Giga Chikadze, and then he mops him. And what happens to Dan Ige? Fights Gavin Tucker, who's on a run, and he lands like a short right cross, and Gavin Tucker, sack of bricks, go back to Canada and don't fight again. Now, I like Gavin Tucker, and we've seen him at some of the events.
And a tough combined record of opponents.
Seen him at FLA, but again, a good win for Dan Ige. But his last 3 losses, Chan Sung Jung, Josh Emmett, Movsar Evloev. Chan Sung Jung, well, the Korean Zombie beat him in every aspect of MMA, out-grappled him and outstruck him, and then had a title shot off of that win. The Josh Emmett fight is a loss on the page. Go back and watch it. First round, Ige gets dropped in the first minute by a right hand, and then he clears the cobwebs and he gets on top.
How?
He has a good first. I don't know.
I just mean, like, that was one of the cleanest non-knockout shots you're ever going to see. Like, a full overhand from Josh Emmett. Dan Ige goes down like the fight's over. 30 seconds later, this guy is up like nothing ever happened.
And he ends up on top. It's a competitive first round, but the knockdown, Emmett wins it. The second round, controversial, whatever, but Dan Ige made a really good
He did.
account of himself, even though that says unanimous decision loss. That could have gone either way.
This guy fighting for a title.
And then against Movsar he got mopped on the ground. So for Damon Jackson, he is great with his takedowns. The other thing about Jackson is, you mentioned it, tough as a $2 steak. Go watch his fight that he had against Charles Rosa, where he's leaking blood, and they don't end the fight, and he ends up getting the win in that one. The 4 wins that he has in a row right now: Charles Rosa, Camuela Kirk by submission, who I thought had a great chance, Dan Argueta, and then Pat Sabatini. A big step up for Jackson against the Dan Ige that's kind of faltering a little bit right now. So we threw it out there to you guys in a community poll out there on YouTube. We wanted your thoughts on this one. 60% voted with Dan Ige, 40% with Damon Jackson.
Good split there, though.
In the comments, Christian says 50K versus Action Jackson. Favorite matchup on the card. Level competition isn't the best metric for predicting fights, but Ige's 3-fight losing streaks consisted of, and then he goes on to talk about it. Bill is saying keep putting Damon Jackson as an underdog. Joshua, give me Action Jackson by close decision. Angel, around Howell with the pineapple. I don't like Jackson, but he's going to win. So the commenters are fresh on Damon Jackson, but the community's going with Dan Ige in this matchup. And style for style, Jackson, he's going to throw unorthodox strikes like we said. He's going to get hit a little bit on the feet. Dan Ige, though, he's got to be all the way in or all the way out. He's struggled with that in some of these recent fights.
He has, but I think all the way in he will have success against Damon Jackson. I know that might seem odd because Jackson did just come off a TKO against Pat Sabatini. Dan Ige's chin is made of what, like, Drew Dober's chin is made from. Like, you really got to hit this guy hard to put him down, and I don't think Jackson has that ability. I think, again, Jackson, it all seems lined up for him to win this fight. He's on a great run of his career. Dan Ige seems to be kind of on his way out of the rankings. I just think Dan Ige has good enough takedown defense to keep this fight on the feet, and I do think that if Jackson fights in the pocket, he will leave some of those bigger counter shots, and I do favor Dan Ige for those reasons.
Numbers-wise, Dan Ige in the UFC, and he's had a lot of fights, is 51% on Dana White's Contender Series and UFC combined. That's 13 fights, 51% takedown defense for Dan Ige. Chunks are taken out in certain ones of these fights. I mean, Korean Zombie got 3. Movsar got 9. He went 9 of 16 on takedown attempts in that fight. So, yeah, it's going to get chipped away. To me, I like the boxing combinations, the speed. I like the time away for Dan Ige after his last fight, but I really do like the fact that he can get in and out of the pocket. If he stays in there at all and leaves his chin out there, Damon Jackson is the type of guy that's going to take it home to Fortis MMA. I love what Jackson's brought together in this fight, and I have a hard time picking against Jackson, but against maybe my better judgment, I'm taking Ige here as well.
I just got to learn from my past mistakes. I picked Julieta Rosa. That did not work out for me whatsoever. This should be a great fight, though. Again, you have a guy who seems to be potentially on his way out of the rankings against a surging prospect who nobody ever thought would be in the position that he's currently at. He's completely reinvented himself. This is the fight that everybody can get excited for.
Matt, it is a great fight coming up this weekend. Both of us going with 50K Dan Ige to get the win. We know you're going to let us know, but please do down below in the comments section who you have in this fight and the rest. The main event is left. Nasruddin Imavov is taking on Kelvin Gastelum. It should be a great fight to end a big week of fights. We can't wait for it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.